Hey guys, welcome back to my today. I'm going to be doing my September wrap-up. I actually did do the statistics this time. So I read 13 books this month. 3 were fantasy, 5 romance, 4 literary fiction, and 1 mystery. And the total amount of pages that I read this month was 5,117 pages, and my average rating was 3.44. So all in all, it was a pretty good reading month. Let's go ahead and talk about the first book that I read in September, and my first book was actually a reread. I read Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series, and I started my reread of this last year, so I had gotten to Crown of Midnight, and this is the first one that I picked up this year, and I'm having such a great time rereading the series and tabbing it. I never thought to annotate and tab like my favorite books in high school. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. I know I did it for English classes, but I don't know. So now I'm like loving rereading the series and tabbing everything that has to do with our main character, the romance parts, and a lot of the plot things, because like now that I've read the whole story, I can like see like Easter eggs from earlier books, so it's really fun. I like to like tab those as well. But this is one of my favorite books in the series. I remember it being my favorite when I initially read it, so it's still my favorite. I feel like I might like other ones more now, just because I'm older, and like I think I appreciate like the story and the writing more, and it being the second time that I read it, it feels like it's just amazing. It's a great time. So this is the first book that I read, and I gave this one 5 stars. Next book I read was a new release, and it is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. This is the 2nd book in the Rose Hill series, and this one is about Ford from the first book, about his best friend and also the girl main character's brother. So his name is Wes, and then Skylar is the female main character, and she's come to Rose Hill to kind of go off the grid, and like a lot of things have happened in her life. She's grown up always in the spotlight. She's a famous pop star, and she kind of like wants to get away from all of that and like do things on her own. So that's why she's come to Rose Hill, and she meets Wes. And this one, all of her books are going to be single dad tropes, I think, single parent tropes. A lot of people don't like that, but Elsie Silver does single parent tropes, single dad tropes so well. So I enjoy reading them because of Elsie Silver, and just the way that Wes and Skylar interact. And I love the kids in this. I love Wes's kids. They're so cute, especially the little boy, Oliver. I see myself in him as a child. He doesn't speak much. He's very reserved, and he only speaks to people that he's like very comfortable around. And some of the things that Wes, like in Wes's internal dialogue when he was like thinking about his son, about how he doesn't speak and he like tries to give him space, and there are certain things he might not have like a lot to say on. Oliver is literally me. That's how I was as a child, and I think it's really cool to be a representation of that in a child, because I feel like you don't see that a lot. So I really enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 stars, and I'm really excited for the next book in this series. On Audible, I listened to The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand. I specifically wanted to pick this one up because I knew that there was a show on Netflix, a limited series, that was coming out that had Nicole Kidman in it, and I was like, if I'm going to watch the show, I have to read the book first. And I've heard that the book and the show are like pretty different, so I haven't watched it yet, so we'll have to see and compare. But Ellen Hildebrand's writing is something that I'm trying to get into. The last book that I've read by her wasn't like my favorite, but this one I did enjoy. I think I just liked the story of this one more, and I feel like a lot of her literary fictions can be like considered women's fiction, and also some of them have like mystery elements to them. Like this one kind of had a mystery element. Anyway, this one's about a couple that's getting married in Nantucket, and the morning of the wedding, maid of honor is washed ashore and she's dead. So you're basically following that, and like all the characters about rich people and everything that goes on in their lives, and like them doing shady stuff. So it's really interesting, and I think listening to the audio made it easier for me to like follow along, just because the last book that I read by Ellen Hildebrand, it was really hard for me to like stay focused, just because I feel like the writing sometimes is kind of slow paced, but I did give that one 3 stars. And then the next book I read was my book of the month pick, and that is The Love Elixir of Augusta Stern. Okay, so when I first picked this one up, I felt like it was going to be a 5-star. It's about a girl named Augusta in the 1920s. She's growing up, she's a teenager in the 1920s. She helps her father run his pharmacy, and she's like wants to become like her father, like take over the business or like go to pharmacy school, whatever. And so she always has believed in medicine, and then when her mother dies, her aunt comes to stay with them, and she sees that her great aunt has a lot of like mysterious ways that she heals people. So she's kind of like interested in that, because all her life she's thought medicine only saved people, but when it couldn't save her mom, she started to question that, and now she's wondering if like her great aunt's medicine, we call it that, could have saved her. So now she's intrigued in like both sides of the healing process, and like her father isn't really interested in what the great aunt does and vice versa. So anyway, there's that like magical element to it, and then it also has 2 timelines where you're following Augusta in the 1920s as a teenager, the things with like the pharmacy and her great aunt, and then she also has a love interest that she meets at that time, and then in the present it's the 1980s, but she's retiring and she's gone to live at a retirement home in Florida, and her great love from the 20s, because it didn't work out with them then, their paths cross again. He's staying at the same retirement community. So all that is brought together, and it goes back and forth between the timelines, and you're trying to figure out like what happened to them in the past and like why they didn't end up together. It's really fun. I thought I was going to give this 5 stars. I love dual timelines, and I love like the magical element of it, but I just feel like it took so long to get to the point. It's like, why, like, I felt like it was dragged out, even though it's a really short book. It's like less than 300 pages. I feel like a lot of it was just fluff, and yeah, I still gave it 4 stars. I think I still gave this one 4 stars just because the story is like really intriguing, and I did keep my attention, but I feel like it just dragged out a little bit to the point where it's like I would have liked to see like more of the magical elements rather than just her being mad at the male main character and not hearing his side. Like, why did it take so long to find out from his side of the story like what happened? You don't know that until like the last 20 pages. So that annoyed me, but overall still a good book. Finally picked up Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, and this one I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars. I love the romance, and what I loved about this one is that it's a surprise pregnancy, but I feel like in a lot of surprise pregnancy tropes in the books, they usually like, oh, you find out the main character's pregnant, and then it skips ahead to where they've had the baby like a year, like 9 months later or whatever. But this one follows Wynn throughout her entire pregnancy, and her and the father of her baby coexisting and like trying to do the coexisting thing, like co-parenting thing, and them just becoming friends and hanging out. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting and like a unique way to write the surprise pregnancy trope, because you really don't get her with like the kids like when you're at the end, like her having the baby at the end. So I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of felt more like you were still getting the romance rather than just focusing on that she has a kid now, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 stars. Next, I read this Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. I've had this on my TBR since last year, and I read this one because obviously you've probably seen it on TikTok. It went viral for giving Gilmore Girls vibes, which I do kind of agree with, like the small town vibes and stuff. But my main problem was that the male main character's name is Logan, and the entire time I was just picturing Logan from Gilmore Girls, and I don't really like Logan, so it was hard for me to like the main characters in this because of that, and root for the romance, because I feel like they instantly fell in love within like the first 3 chapters, and then there's like not much else. These books are really just for the vibes. There's really no like main plot, if that makes sense. So it was kind of disappointing for me, but if you're looking just for like easy read with fall vibes, then you would probably like this one. Just don't expect much out of the story or the plot. But I did give it 3 stars because, you know, I feel like it was a good time to read it to start with the fall vibes. And continuing those fall vibes, I read Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice by Kate Sigatelli-Cook. I don't know how to say her last name. But this one is a YA book about a girl who hates pumpkin spice lattes. That's like her main character trait. And it kind of becomes annoying. She lives in a quaint New England town where like they have one coffee shop and then a new chain is opening up across the street, and it happens to be the new guy at school that she's kind of found cute, and like they were kind of flirting. She finds out that it's his family's chain, like their store. He's like, they're gonna put us out of business, and she like hates him for really no good reason. Like she's so mean to him, and he doesn't understand why, and all he's done is been nice to her. He's not doing anything on purpose to like take away like her mom's business, so I don't understand like all the hatred that she has towards him. And she's like in high school, maybe almost a senior or a junior, and she's acting like a child, like throwing temper tantrums about how much she hates pumpkin spice lattes, about how this guy who has no role in his parents' company, like he doesn't call the shots, she's mad at him and just doing stupid stuff. So I gave this one 2 stars. I felt like the vibes were fine. They do fall related things, which is fun, but it's just the main character just made it unenjoyable for me. So that's why I gave it a 2 star. I read The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, and this was the last one that I've been waiting to read by him, and it was really good. I actually read it on my Kindle. Probably binged it in like a day. It's so good, so fast paced. All of his books are that way, and I feel like he always has like a good little plot twist at the end. But this one's about a woman who comes home and shoots her husband in the face 5 times and then never speaks a word ever again. A psychotherapist is trying to figure out her story and get her to speak and find out what really happened to her husband. So you're just kind of following that and like him working in the psych ward where she lives, where she's been for however many years. So it was really fun. Great little thriller. Then I read the second book in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe series, The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. I really don't know why I bought this. I think I already had it when I read the first one, so I had to read this one. But this one's about Hazel, who's the bookstore owner, and a fisherman named Noah. And someone's leaving notes in her books, and she's trying to figure out like who it is. That's mainly, it's again, one of the things where I feel like the romance just comes on too heavy in the beginning, and then I'm like, we're not even like, I can't even root for anybody because it's already happened. So, but again, if you want the vibes, those are great books. Then I read A Man Called Ove, another Frederick Backman book, and I absolutely loved this book. I think I originally was going to give it 4.5 stars when I read it, but now that I think about it, I think this is a 5-star book for me. It was just so good. So that means that this is the only 5-star book that I have from September. This is about a grumpy old man named Ove. He sticks to like a routine. He wants everything to be perfect. He wants people to follow the rules, and if you don't, then he calls you an idiot. He doesn't understand why people like don't think. And anyway, his inner dialogue is just so funny. But he's kind of having a hard time and starts to form like a relationship, like a friendship with his new next door neighbors who are really young, and he starts to realize that there's more to life than being, you know, a grumpy old man all the time. And it's just amazing. This book was just so cute and like wholesome, and there are quotes in here that are so good. I actually read this on my Kindle because it's Kindle Unlimited, and then I had to go and buy the physical copy because I want to go back and annotate this book because there were so many good quotes in here. So I still haven't done that. So that's another thing I still need to do, but oh, it's so good. Out of all these books, you should read that one. Last book that I read in September, listened to on audio, and it's The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This one is about, this is basically just like a cozy fantasy. That's literally it. There was a bit more of a plot than like most cozy fantasies that I read. Like some of them don't have a plot and it's just character driven, but not in like a fast paced or like high stake way. It's just, you're just reading about these people that live in this place. But this one's definitely cozy fantasy, kind of cottagecore, but it's about a girl named, what's her name? Keela. She's a librarian, and then the Empire's like banning magic and her library gets burned down, so she has to flee. So she flees back to her hometown, and you know, she had to leave some of those books, like special books, behind, and she opens up her own like little jam shop while she's here, and she meets the main character, the male main character there, and he helps her out a lot, and they start to, you know, develop feelings, but there's a lot more to the story than just the cozy vibes. Like, it actually was a lot more entertaining than I thought it was gonna be. I thought this was just gonna be a straight vibey book, but there was actually a lot going on in this, and yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Not that it was bad, but it was good. You know, it surprised me actually, so I might bump it up to like 3.5. I just filmed my wrap up and I realized I forgot to mention that I read 2 other books. I read Firefly Lane and Fly Away by Kristen Hanna, because those are part of I guess they're kind of a series. But Firefly Lane I read because I wanted to watch the show, and I still haven't finished the show yet, but the book was amazing. I borrowed it from my mom, so that's why I don't have the actual books with me. But Firefly Lane just follows 2 best friends, Tully and Kate, from when they like met in the 70s, and then it goes by like each decade kind of like their life and like what they're doing and all that stuff. So it shows them from like when they were teenagers becoming friends, in their 20s in college, and then finding their first job, getting married, all that stuff. And it's just a great like story of like friendship. I said that A Man Called Ove will be my only 5-star in September, but it's actually my second one because Firefly Lane I gave 5 stars. And then Fly Away is the second book, and it takes place like at the end of like what happened in Firefly Lane, which I don't think Fly Away was really necessary. I think it didn't need to be continued, and if anything it just made me more like annoyed at some of the characters. I think it was just an unnecessary book, so I gave that one 3 stars, but I can't believe I forgot to mention those. So in case you were wondering why I only had 11 books, I forgot to mention those. So, and those are all the books that I read in September. If you guys have read any of these books, let me know down in the comments what you thought of them. Give this video a thumbs up, and hopefully I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!